Yes.
Cádiz, the oldest city in Western Europe. The winds of change are rising as the championship steps up a gear. Will we see more upheaval on the Andalusian coast? Welcome to the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalucia, Cádiz, presented by Near.
Yes. Got to face it. Let's get back to basics. I'ma
Look at the speed.
I don't have the patience. I'ma shoot right now. Yeah, we undefeated. You gon' lose right now. Like.
Stand by. 0, go, go, go. Line, lock. Go wing. Slowly coming away. Turn. Here we go. Stay by wheel. You guys all right? Very well sound, everyone.
Steeped in sailing history, this is one of the oldest continually inhabited cities in Western Europe, dating back to the 12th century BC. The crowds will be out in force watching from the seawall, as well as out on the water. We welcome you to the Spain Sail Grand Prix. This is event 6 and the final stop of the European leg of season 3 of SailGP, and today we have 3 races for the entire fleet, and then another trio of races tomorrow before the top 3 teams compete in the final podium race. Alongside Stevie Morrison and special guest 2-time Olympic gold medalist and team member of Great Britain SailGP, Hannah Mills, I'm Todd Harris. Well, Stevie, if you remember at this event last year, just getting to Mark 1 became treacherous for a few of the teams, namely Spain and Great Britain.
Well, yeah, Cádiz served up everything last year, and of course the second day was huge. This is just getting out to the start line for the Spanish boat, turning away, perhaps not fully warmed up on board, but just shows the speed of these things. It's like pretty much crashing into a brick wall at that speed, and the impact on the athletes there, falling into the wing. It's big forces, big moments were happening before we even got to the racetrack.
And that was Spain's start on Sunday, day number 2. And then we got to the podium race, and it was involved with Great Britain, Australia, and the USA. The conditions looked to be right, Stevie, and a great start. The line goes white, and then the drama.
Well, they drama indeed, and of course you get to the final, there was more space, but you've just got to push hard, and when you push these boats too hard, they are more than capable of biting back. And here it bit really hard on the British, and you know, again, just huge forces in these crashes. You're going from nearly 100 kilometers an hour to 0 in the blink of an eye. It's big loads on your body.
The good news was everyone was okay. A little damage to that Great Britain boat, but they would recover from that. Large crowds expected all weekend in this beautiful Spanish port city as the world's best sailors representing 9 national teams go head-to-head on the Atlantic Ocean. But right now, let's take a quick look at the standings after 5 events through Saint-Tropez. Australia, the 2-time reigning and defending champions, still with a lead, but just 1 point over New Zealand. Great Britain currently in 3rd place. Denmark on the move as they sit in 4th place. France, Canada, the USA in 7th, and Spain and Switzerland. But as we take a deeper dive into the numbers, you can see the trends that are developing. Australia, hot off their championship last year, they come in, they win the first 2 events. Then it's New Zealand that gets 2 in a row. And then Great Britain having their problems in Copenhagen, didn't even race, so they're lucky to be in that top 3. And of course, the USA, first coming off of their last win in France. We were just moments away from race 1 here in Cádiz, but a popular topic of conversation is still the conditions and the speeds we witnessed in Saint-Tropez as SailGP put on a show on the Riviera.
The wind looks pretty big. It's going to be hard. Look at the speed, over 90 kilometers an hour. It's going to get fast, and as they bear away from the wind here, it's going to be dangerous.
And watch the speed, watch the acceleration.
It's so fast, the G-force in that acceleration here. Oh my word!
They dip it!
Oh, he's crashed down, New Zealand. What a move from Burling.
Look at the speeds, everyone over 80 kilometers an hour. 90, 92, 93,
97.
98.5, 99.9 kilometers an hour. Absolutely ripping.
Well, great viewing spots all along the shore, and the fans are getting creative on where to watch the world's best sailors go head-to-head. Well, those wins on day one in Saint-Tropez also led to a real water cooler moment that did not sit well with the two-time defending champions Australia and their driver Tom Slingsby. At issue, a move by New Zealand which ended up costing the Aussies 2 positions.
Yeah, coming up.
Australia, they've got to keep clear of New Zealand. Oh my
They dip it.
Oh, he's crashed down, New Zealand. What a move from Burling.
We're just trying to safely do this thing, and we've got people out there who just don't understand the risk versus reward scenario, and this happens, and yeah, it's unfortunate.
We were literally just trying to get through the finish line safely. Honestly, couldn't have cared less if we came first or second in that one. It's the first race of the series. We're just trying to get through safely. To me, him just coming up at us like that, it's just unsafe. Like, we're just trying to finish a race, and people, like, in that scenario again, like, I know 50-50 whether people get seriously injured. Yeah, I just don't think it's worth it for 1 point. I don't know, I'm sure he's got a different view. He's always seemed to have a pretty warped view, so it'd be interesting to hear that.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, we were overlapped to Lord for a very long time. We felt like they were closing the gauge down to us, and we're fully within our rights of what we were doing. We did exactly the same thing with Canada in the next reach, and they got out of the way. I think as skippers, we might need to pitch in for some anger management lessons for Tom. I think it's a bit out of line, the amount of swear words he was saying over the race management channel after the incident.
Yeah, in my opinion, there's a time and a place for luffing someone, and it's not coming into the finish line doing 50 knots with a big brake wall straight after the finish line.
Well, let's look at that in a little more detail. And here's a fundamental rule in sailing that the boat closest to the wind, the Australians, it highlighted here in this case, must keep clear of the boat away from the wind, the Kiwis. They're in blue. Now, Tom Slingsby will know that. He's used that rule to his advantage many, many times. But here we see the boats turned down. The finish line's in the top left of the screen, and the Australians have the fastest angle towards that finish. Tom tries to push over the top, but now we see the boats are converging. Must be alarm bells on the Australian boat at this point. They must keep clear, but they're very, very slow to react. Burling keeps turning towards him, forces him up towards the wind, and there we see it. Big press up, big pitch down into the water for the Australian boat. Let's take a look at why that big nose down happened on board the Australian boat. New Zealand turns towards the Australians slow to react, and they start to tip over here. We see the rudder getting close to the surface of the water, and there as it breaks free, they lose control, the bows pitch down, and that was it. End of the race for the Australians, and they lost 2 places in that move.
So a very big moment in Saint-Tropez, and while the Kiwis and Peter Burling made the most of that moment, it made us wonder what the other drivers and crew competed in SailGP that were not involved thought about the move and its ultimate outcome on day one in Saint-Tropez, because in the end it proved very costly to the Australians' campaign in Saint-Tropez.
I think it was pretty clear cut from looking after it that Pete was fine. He actually didn't get that close in the end. I can understand Tom being pretty nervous because the boats were pretty out of control that day, and he was sitting over 50 knots. But yeah, looking back at it, I don't think Tom's got much to complain about.
Yeah, I think it was an aggressive move from the Kiwis, but I think everyone is aggressive on the league, and you have to be focused and knowing that everyone can do this kind of maneuvers. So I think the Kiwis were on their right.
Well, the crowds are filling in, and they continue to make their way down to the seawall in this beautiful city. Get ready to watch SailGP here in Season 3. Before we get to the racing, Stevie Morrison's going to take us through today's course here on the Atlantic Ocean.
Flying fast on the foils is the key to a good start. It's then a drag race to Mark 1. After the mark, we'll see the first split in the fleet as they sail off in different directions, with the crews trying to select the side of the course that they think is going to give them the quickest time down to gate 2. At the gate, it's a big choice for them to make, as they can turn left or right. For the leading boats, this should be easier, with them looking to select the best side of the course that they think will take them up the leg the fastest. For the boats behind, the congested fleet and the turbulent wind makes that decision a lot harder. Remember that sailboats don't sail fast unless they're sailing at an angle to the wind, so we'll see them zigzag their way around the course, looking for the fastest path. Every gate an opportunity to overtake, to attack or defend. But the devil will be in the detail today with this steady wind here in Cádiz, meaning that meters matter in the race to the finish.
And the wind is just going to be a factor today, as well as the conditions on the water. For more on those conditions, we go down to the fourth member of our broadcast team, Olympic silver medalist Lisa Darmanin.
Well, we have a beautiful breeze developing here on the Atlantic Ocean. Winds are currently 18 kilometres per hour, gusting up to 27 kilometres per hour from west-southwest, so just fantastic conditions for racing. When it comes to sea state, there's an underlying ocean swell coming west as well. So towards that big seawall where you see all the crowds, the swells are almost up to 1 metre in wave height, which makes flying at F50 quite a challenge. So the flight controllers have a busy day ahead of them as they try to counteract the extra power they'll get as they surf down the waves, and also counteract as they launch off the top of the waves. So it's going to be a really interesting day to watch the F50s around the racetrack. They haven't had a lot of practice in that, and I do think everyone's going to make mistakes today. But unfortunately, from where I am on the water right now, that I've seen that the Spanish jib is down and someone is up the rig trying to fix it. So we potentially have a race delay out here as they scramble to try get ready for today's racing.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. Indeed, we do have a delay of 3 minutes. So the start now from race number 1 will be 5 minutes, 45 seconds. And that gives us a great opportunity to bring in two-time Olympic gold medalist, member of GBR's SailGP team. We're lucky to have her with us. Hannah Mills, welcome. And your perspective, you've sailed on these waters before. What's it like from what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing spot to sail. You know, we can see today there's big swell, which makes the boats really difficult to sail. There's good breeze filled in, and hopefully this Spanish boat can get back up and going and ready for the start of race 1.
From your perspective on the fleet, and we're halfway through the season at this point, are there any surprises for you? What is the biggest, the biggest surprise that you've seen?
I think it's been really interesting to see. You know, the Aussies obviously started off with a great couple of events and then have started to struggle, whereas the Kiwis have had the opposite and they've really come into form. Whereas the Great Britain team have kind of been quite consistent, other than obviously the damage from hitting the bottom in Copenhagen. So yeah, the top 3 have all had really different starts to the season.
Perfect. We appreciate your insight, Hannah. We're looking forward to working with you the next 2 days. We go down to Australia now, as we are now 4:45 away from the start of this race, and be able to join with Tom Slingsby on board, the 2-time defending and reigning champions. Tom, how are things for you? And you guys did get the message that it's pushed back 3 minutes.
The message that it's pushed back, yeah, it's really tough out here. I don't know if you've spoken to the other teams. I hope they're struggling as much as us, but big waves, bit of a swell hitting a big rock wall, and it's bouncing back at us, so it's turning the race course into a bit of a washing machine for sea state. So there's going to be a lot of crashes up and down, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, well, thanks, Tom. And I know you got Tash at the back of the boat there. I know occasionally you like to think of me as a captain hindsight, but I'm wondering, with the hindsight of the practice you've had, what can we expect from the racing out there today, Tash?
Getting windier and windier as the day's going on, so I'm pretty excited for some wild racing.
Oh, that sounds good. And are we expecting, is there going to be a real fight on the start line? Is the start going to be absolutely crucial today?
I think just getting around the course without crashing is probably going to be the most crucial today.
Okay, well, good luck with that, and look forward to watching it take place.
Yes, thank you.
Our thanks to Tom Slingsby and Tush Bryant for taking a moment to fill us in. Meanwhile, there's the scene on board Spain. The host boat still going to work. Stevie, 3:15 now away. With these conditions, it can't be easy making repairs out on the water.
No, I think just moving around. I mean, pretty much the conditions out there, it looks a bit like trying to drive a Formula One car down a country road. I mean, the sea state's so unsteady, and you know, we said before the race, the devil's in the detail, and these little details here, a breakage like this, it's so hard to keep your mindset intact. I mean, for Hannah, you just don't plan for these kind of mistakes.
I think you do plan for things to go wrong, and you definitely have a strategy as a team as to, okay, this is a distraction, we've got to fix it, and then we've got to get back into race mode. So I'm sure they'll be all over it, the Spanish, if they do manage to get it back up and running in time.
Coming up on 2.5 minutes to go before the start of race number 1. Remember, 3 races today, then 3 races tomorrow, and then the big podium race for the top 3 place teams. 2:30 now, the mark. I know the Spanish fans, Stevie, will be gutted if their team can't get out there. There's one of the teams that could do very well today, Phil Robertson and the Canadians, and they've got a strong crew, of course, with Georgia Lewin LaFrance, Chris Draper on the wing trimming.
Yeah, and I mean, my eyes are on Billy Gooderham in the middle there, flight controller. you know, it's a big day for the flight controllers. You're trying to fly the boat at a constant height above the water, but the height of the water is constantly changing. So it's going to be a real balancing act for those flight controllers. How high dare you push the boat? Because the higher you can get the boat, faster you're going to go. But there's a real risk today. If you fly the boat too high, as Lisa said, you're just going to jump out of a wave. And then you're going to crash down.
Hannah, it wasn't a few events ago that you were out on board. What is it like these moments before the start? You get down to the last 2.5 minutes. What's it like going into the start box and knowing, okay, in 2.5 minutes, it is all on?
It's exciting. Yeah, the adrenaline is really pumping. You're in your final preparation. You're talking about the wind, talking about what's likely to happen, and trying to get the boat prepped and in the best place to nail that start.
What's it like for you being here away from it now? Is this difficult for you?
Yeah, it's definitely not as fun not being on the boat, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm really missing it, but can't wait to get back on board at some point in the future.
Well, we'll try not to take that to heart, but that's great signs now on the screen. We can see the Spanish have got the jib, the flappy sail at the front of the boat there, back up in the air. That's really good news. Hopefully they'll be able to get themselves going. And as Hannah sort of suggested now, it's real time to refresh and focus. Routine, routine, routine to make sure you're ready for this next start, ready to hit that line really, really fast on the gun, because I just think the starting will be crucial. And for Nikolaj Sejersted there on the Danish boat, well, they had a real run of form through this European leg, and this is the last European leg. I think a big event for the Danish crew.
Yeah, the Danes have had good performances the last three. They struggle a bit in Saint-Tropez, finishing 6th, but Plymouth and Copenhagen, they get into the podium race, top 3 for them, and they've got a strong crew across the board.
Well, they have a Nikolaj Sejersted, round the world yachtsman, so probably one of the most used to massive ocean swells. So it could take a little bit of experience on the wheel today to get the boat round smoothly. Tash alluding to the fact that you know, just keeping the boat round upright and fast is going to be one of the big challenges.
2:20 now to the start of race number 1 here on day number 1 of the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalucia, Cádiz, presented by Near. As the Americans get themselves into position, looks pretty calm from this perspective, Hannah. I know it's different when you're out on the water. As we look at their crew, Jimmy Spithill, Paul Campbell, James, Hans Henken, the flight controller, of course, Erica Reinecke getting her opportunity as a strategist out there. How much pre-strategy can she offer to Jimmy Spithill, and what is she looking for at this point on the race course?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot you can input. You know, everyone's very calm right now, just kind of waiting, seeing what the other boats are doing, seeing how they're lining up, and you know, the strategist at the back of the boat, that's exactly what they're doing. They're watching for the other teams, seeing where the gaps might be, and trying to pick the best spot in terms of the wind and the closest to Mark 1.
So this is the calm before the storm as we approach 90 seconds to go before we kick things off here. Race number 1. Good sign that that rib is pulling away. So Spain under their own power, and now everyone starts jockeying for their position. Stevie, we've seen in the past, the Kiwis like to, I don't say not be sociable, but they like to get away from everyone, go to the very back of the pack, and then hit the line at full speed. We've seen Great Britain, France, and the USA. They don't mind the close quarters. They'll jockey around a little bit. But it's interesting to see what Spain's going to do on home waters. Are they fully competent in that jib that's out in front that they fixed?
Well, we're about to find out, Tom. There you go, 1 minute to go, and yeah, the Spanish a little bit late back in here at the bottom left-hand side of our screen. I think this could give them a nice opportunity to keep that space, but we can see the pack, the hustle and bustle in that pack there as the United States and New Zealand, well, they were both in the final in Saint-Tropez, but they're out late on the box there. 42 seconds to go, and I like where the Australians are mid-screen at the moment. A little bit of time to run up, good control of their position now, and all the crews are going to be thinking about the timing. Late moving by Great Britain, they're pushing close to the Australian boat, but it's about the timing now. 25 seconds to go. The start line's going to appear to the right of our screen. There it is. It's red at the moment. When it turns white, we're good to race. We can see that pole position, and Slingsby on Australia looks perfectly lined up, but Will Burling managed to find that gap through. He looks like he's got an opportunity. It's going to be a question of timing now. Time and distance to the line. All about hitting this line at full speed. Who's timed it right? At the top of the line, has the Swiss got a gap? I think there's not going to be room in there. Watch for it going light.
Australia GBR OCS over the line early. Delayed start of Spain, delayed start of Spain.
Big moment there, Australia and Great Britain. There must have been millimetres in that. They must now drop to the back of the fleet. They don't have to get behind the Spanish, but everyone else. Great news for Quentin de la Pierre, as I think the French are going to lead us away to Mark 1.
So the Spain Sail Grand Prix is off and running as they make their way to mark number 1. Great position by the French, also the Kiwis in the mix, and the Americans.
The United States have got the faster angle in across the New Zealand boat here, Todd, but I think the French are going to hang in there. It's going to be tight, and as they head towards that Cádiz shoreline, we can expect the waves to get bigger, we can expect it to become more unstable, and the next time they turn the boat could be the crucial manoeuvre here. How can these... Look at the New Zealand boat is fucking around in the background. They're trying to get things going, but the United States, they're foiling hard and fast and look like they're going to drive over the top.
Hannah, how important is it to be the first ones to blink, the first ones to make the moves, and it comes from Canada?
Yeah, well, I think it's most important to make the move and make it good, and not fall off the foils and not make a hard time of it in this really tricky swell that we're seeing.
On board the Canadians, that's Georgia there at the back, Llewellyn of France, just saying, I think 1 and in. She means I think we can turn one more time and make it to gate 2. I think today, every time you turn the boat, as Hannah said, it's a lot of risk. If you make a mistake, you could lose a lot, but, you know, best sailors in the world, we've got to expect accuracy, we've got to expect excellence.
We got a tight race, 4 boats within 50 meters of one another. It's France, USA, Canada, and New Zealand, everyone traveling in excess of 55 kilometers per hour.
And they keep it on the foils through there. Phil Robertson sounding very calm on the wheel there, turning the boat. Nice manoeuvre, it's high, but I think
got the
he's
right of way?
just saved it. Canada's got the right of way here. They must keep out the way on New Zealand. And we can see the USA, Jimmy Spittle, he's pushing over the top of Quentin de la Pierre's French boat, but it's going to be very, very tight. It's going to come down to this next turn. Here we go. They set up on the French boat. Let's watch them do it. Oh, top of the screen, Canada, they've come off the foils, they jumped out the water, look at the speed fall off there. The New Zealand boat struggling in that turn as well, and the French, well, they've done a nice job there, de la Pierre. USA turn, can they keep it in the air? Just Jimmy Spittle, beautiful turn by the Americans there. Excellent job, Hans Henken on the flight control, flying the boat so well, and the Canadians are still dead in the water as the French look well set for gate number 2.
So as they approach gate number 2 here on leg 2 of 6, it is France, USA, New Zealand, your top 3. Canada was sitting in 2nd place. They have dropped back to 9th.
Mistakes count, Todd. Meters, meters, meters. Little mistakes make such a big difference. France, they choose to turn right towards the Cádiz shoreline. We're going to learn a lot in this first race, Hannah, aren't we, as to which side of the course is favoured. And I don't know how much the crew will know until they're actually in the race now. Where is the favoured side to go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a huge part of the strategist's role, is keeping an eye on which side of the course is paying as you make your way around race 1, and then implementing that for the next legs in the future.
Well, it's going to be interesting for us watching. We can see New Zealand, they turn left, they're coming towards the camera going,
Great Britain has a moment.
Britain off the foils. Luke Parkinson, he loves flying the boat high, but he got a bit too high. He's hit the brakes at the roundabout just in front of the Australians, and Slingsby's had to park the boat to avoid him. It's a lot of drama.
Penalty USA relative. France didn't give room in the boundary. Penalty clear.
Just had to let the French get back past, take a 20-metre gain back there for Jimmy Spittle. It's right on the boundary. Watch here with Great Britain, he flies in. Oh my Lord, trying to do a turn right round that gate mark, and they just got really loose, really out of control. Well, I think they'll be okay, but this shows how hard it is out here. Back at the front, right of way, New Zealand. Jimmy Spittle, he must turn behind. Spain, Jordi Jamar, well, they've only just fixed the boat, and they're flying right back into this race on the Spanish boat.
So we've got 4 right now within 100 meters of one another. France, New Zealand, USA, Spain, the top 4. Switzerland's moved up to 5th place, and in the back, surprisingly, Canada, Denmark, and Great Britain.
You can see in the bottom left there, the race fly times. We used to see 100% in the last few events. We can see 95%, 98%. It's not easy to stay on the foils, but the French are being rewarded. 98% flight time. That's why they're in the lead at the moment. They're managing to do a good job in these tricky conditions as they set up to turn one more time on the boundary. Olivier Edlon on the grinding pedestal there, having to work so hard to keep that big wing sail moving.
And Hannah, do you think this is a situation of not if, but when you drop off the foils, how quickly you can recover for everyone?
Yeah, definitely. You know, these types of conditions, it's all about minimizing mistakes, but if you do make a mistake, how quickly can you recover from that, get back up to speed, and get back into the race?
So here we go, we see USA, United States coming in with the right of way on New Zealand, but we're back up with the French. They're clear out ahead here, and it should be a little bit easier for Contant. New Zealand had to dip behind. The right of way was with Jimmy Spithill. Look at them. As you say, Todd, 100 metres separates these first 4 boats. There are ladder lines showing us that they're moving up the course, left to right on the screen. They're heading into the wind. Probably one more turn for each boat. That yellow line, top right of screen, that's the ley line. If they're sailing parallel along that line, they can hope to make the next gate without turning again. And at the moment, Spain, they're right back in it. Jimmy Spithill's pushing it, he's flying high. Oh, that's going to go to the umpires. Expect to hear from Craig Mitchell on that one.
This is the umpires. A penalty USA, relative Spain, port tack boat not keeping clear.
Oh, he was pushing his luck though, Todd. He's now going to drop behind the Spanish. That's going to be a costly one for Jimmy Spithill. This will hurt. Here we go, gate 3, and it's going to be the French, clear ahead of New Zealand.
So at gate number 3, the near gate, it is France that rounds first as they make their way down the course. The Kiwis have been consistent. They move into second place by way of the Americans, having to give them that penalty position. They will have to drop back, as Stevie pointed out, behind Spain, and the Americans have really lost their momentum. Look at this. They're going to go from 4th to 5th.
Should be clearing that penalty now. He's just pointing out to Craig, we've got behind him there. Nice of Jimmy to help the umpires as we go along. But what a performance by this Spanish boat. At the moment, they were nowhere. They were at the back off the start, late in with that repair. Up to 3rd here. It's tight now.
Correction, the Americans have dropped back to 4th, so just that one position.
Come here now. Tight for Australia. He's got to be clear ahead of Canada. Canada had the right of way, but I think he judged that well. And that's Tash Bryant trying to point out all the traffic. It's so busy. Just having your eyes out the boat and seeing what's going on, Hannah's pretty tough job. Top of screen, New Zealand, they're off the foils. Look, they're crashing down this downwind leg as they move down the course. It's proving so hard. It's not a good first lap for the British boat there, Hannah.
No, they've really suffered from that fall off the foils at that bottom gate mark. And I think they were pretty lucky to not have the Australians go into the back of them as well.
We can see there Ben Ainsley driving the boat downwind. That's going to be look at the waves, look at the throwing around. The boat's just bucking around here. As we come back to the front of the fleet, Todd, and New Zealand, they just don't seem to go away at the moment.
Contant Delapierre and France out in front. Remember, it's a year ago, this event where Contant Delapierre came on board and took over for Billy Besson, and he's done a great job, and today looking very good. The Kiwis now have taken the lead, so it's New Zealand, France, and Spain, the USA sitting in 4th.
But look at that average speed, Todd. The Kiwis are faster constantly here. When they next turn, the New Zealand boat will have the right of way. The New Zealand boat constantly about 1.5 kilometres faster on this downwind. Delapierre's going to have to watch out. On the inside, it's New Zealand. He has the right of way, but Delapierre's going to be faster as they round up here. Down at gate number 4, it's going to be very slow on the New Zealand boat. Opportunity for the French to go around the outside and make it really hard.
Not the cleanest rounding
New Zealand
we've
must
seen,
keep
look
clear,
at this.
Todd. New Zealand have got to keep clear. He's going to force him to turn before he wants to. Aggressive from Delapierre. Nice move. It's a good aggressive racing there, and a big move from Delapierre to force Burling away towards the Cadiz shoreline. Now it comes down. Spain, look how high they fly as they turn up, and Jimmy Spithill threads the needle. Opportunity knocks and he takes it.
Conversation and pulse quickens for Spain as they give that position back to the US. They go into 3rd place. The Kiwis still out in front, but France making big games here. It is New Zealand, France, USA, and problems for Australia as they put that nose down into the water.
It's just so hard for the crews out here in these conditions. It's a drag race now. New Zealand, they show us being in the lead at the moment, but they've got to turn the bout when they get close to that boundary, and when they do, they're going to mean the right of way is with France. This move could be crucial. Watch for how they can execute it.
It's this leg and then a left-hand turn to the finish line, and race 1 will be complete, and this is going to be key right here.
Sensible move by the New Zealand there. Burling not wanting to push at this stage in the race. Again, they split, they sail off in different directions. Who can find more wind? Which way are you going right now, Hannah?
I think you're just trying to keep the boat in the air. I'm not sure it matters too much which way you go, and whoever's doing the best job of that, I think will come out on top.
Maneuver from Contant Delapierre in France.
good one, Todd. They flew a bit too high, and look at the speed scrub off. Good save there. Burling, I want to give a little bit. He wants to make sure he's definitely lined up for the next gate, because when he converges with France the next time, he will have the right of way.
Let's check in with Lisa down on the water.
Gate to us.
Well, it's a game of speed versus stability out here. As you can see, the F-50s are riding quite low towards the water because they're just trying to keep their foils in the water and their boat in the air. So it's a real challenge out here for the sailors, and very impressive by the French and the Kiwis because they're just making less mistakes.
Well, Lisa, we talked about the speed that we saw the first day in France, Stevie, and it was a different kind of racing. It was high speed, but it was relatively smooth. But this is all-out cardio workout.
Yeah, the terrain out there is just so unstable, but look now, France must give way. New Zealand have the advantage, and this could be the defining moment of the race in terms of the victory. New Zealand boat take the lead. They're parallel to this yellow ley line. That means they should make this final turning mark with no more manoeuvres. Wow. It's a pretty good sense of timing. How's your timing, Pete Burling? Pretty good in this race. Leg 5 or 6. It's just the glory run to the finish for the New Zealand boat now.
So Burling and the Kiwis through the gate first. Again, it's that left-hand turn. There you see the finish line there. France right behind them in case they make a mistake. But right now, it is not looking that way. Pete Burling and New Zealand SailGP are going to go to get the win. Race number 1 here in Spain goes the way of the Kiwis as they will bring it across the line. And what a way to start out the event. France with a very impressive run. They will take 2nd place. So a year removed from Quentin Delapierre taking over as the driver for France SailGP, and they get a very well-earned 2nd here on the first day at the Spain SailGP, Andalucia, Cádiz.
I think, like Lisa alluded to just a minute ago, that the quality of the sailing from the French team there, they kept it within 10 seconds. They really pushed. In the US, well, they've been pushing hard all day. No exceptions here as they come in to take 3rd place. Nice work, guys. Fair enough, Jimmy. I think that's a good call because they had some big moments. They were pressed hard by this Spanish team. It's a really good result for this young Spanish crew. It's been a tough start to the season, a lot of pressure. Surely you got a silver medal on home ground, Hannah. How is it racing in front of home fans like it must be for the Spanish?
Yeah, it's nothing like racing in front of your home crowd, so they'll be absolutely lapping it up, putting everything into this performance, and it's brilliant to see them get a great first race.
And the Swiss very happy about claiming that 5th. Seb Schneider back in the driver position, and tell you what, who's been all over the course more than the Australians? They will take 6th.
They're over at the start, won't they, Todd? Canada 7th. Tricky race again for the Canadians. I think they'll be disappointed, but perhaps no one more disappointed than the British. They were in there. They kind of need a good performance there, so I think really Ben's going to be wanting to address that. And the Danes, well, that mid-season form early in the European run seems to be slipping away at the moment.
So Denmark finishes at the back of the fleet, so all 9 across the line, and what a performance once again. It's New Zealand, France, USA, the top 3 in race number 1 on day 1. All kinds of key moments, Hannah, but you picked out one in particular.
Yeah, I think for me this was the key moment. You know, the British team, they were just getting back into the race. They reached this gate mark, flew the boat way too high, out of control, came off the foils and stopped dead in the water. Lucky to not have the Australians come into the back of them, and from there on in, there was almost no way back into the race. It was too difficult. They were too slow, and they didn't manage to recover, and so ended up ultimately almost at the back of the fleet.
Big moment there you see on the right-hand side. Great Britain put it in, and they would finish in 8th place. So 1 race down, 2 more to go when we return to Cádiz. Much more of the Spain Sail Grand Prix on a picture-perfect Saturday.
You have been struggling this season.
When you come in as a new driver in SailGP, you have so much to catch up in so many areas. But now I feel more and more ready to take the lead. The home event is something special now.
I think it's people from Cádiz that make this event very special.
How many kids will go to sleep tonight dreaming of a Spanish win, and hopefully we can make it happen.
We've got a great pool of female talent in Canada, and it's something we're really proud of, and George is a great example of a young up-and-coming star.
to be put into this role as a strategist and figure it out on my own, and also make mistakes and get feedback on how I can do better. And it's been a really rewarding few months for sure.
These boats are super difficult to sail, and if you have more people looking out of the boat and trying to make the right calls, you're for sure going to make better results.
Oh, USA!
They did it!
Were you surprised Jimmy took the win in Saint-Tropez?
You know, I think this is the guy in the America's Cup, he's 8-1 down, and his response in the press conference was, imagine how it's going to feel if you could lose from here to the other team, which is just incredible mindset under that amount of pressure.
Oh my word! Oh, he's crashed down!
Just trying to safely do this thing.
We spoke about it that night, and it's water under the bridge, and we're just happy to move on from here.
Pete was clearly in the right, and would I do the same thing if I was in that situation? You're damn right I would.
Yeah, well, I think last year everyone's a little bit harsh about our performances, to be honest. No, it's been absolutely great to now make 3 finals in a row. You know, for us, it's really about building through the week, you know, making sure we get comfortably through to the final, ideally.
When we get a challenge from the Kiwis like this, it's motivating for me. I relish this sort of challenge. I love it.
Welcome back to continuing coverage of the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalucia, Cádiz, presented by Near. At the end of race number 1, New Zealand gets the win, and Stevie Morrison, it was a dominant performance. They were consistent, they were clean.
Well, it was a great result, and we get to join the New Zealand crew there. Pete's not got his headphones on, so I'm wondering if we can speak to Blair Tuke. I don't know if Blair's got his headphones on board the New Zealand boat, but Blair and Pete and Olivia have got their helmets off at the moment, so I wonder if, Blair, are you listening down there on the water, mate? No, I don't think. I think they're obviously trying to keep a private conversation going on board there, Todd. They seem to have the secret, and they don't want to share it.
No question about it. If they've cracked the code, they're not going to share it with us. So we will see what they can pull off in the second race. As we know, it's all about being consistent. Stevie and Hannah, you got to be consistent. You don't have to win every race, but you've got to be at the top. I'd say at least the top 5.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the crowds here, we can see it's a spectacular view they've got. You know, they're doing a really nice job of putting on a show for the fans. And, you know, with 5 rounds into the season, we're at the halfway point of the championship. You know, we're halfway through. It's absolutely crucial. The US have been struggling, though. But 7th place overall, they won in Saint-Tropez. And we've got to wonder, could things be on the up for Jimmy Spittle and his team?
After making it into the grand final in season 2, some would expect to see the United States team contending for Grand Prix victories in season 3. But a new season brought crew changes, and they needed time to develop.
The Americans are very soon going to be last. Pressure is mounting on them.
And out of 4 events so far, they haven't made a final. Before the race weekend, the United States team had the responsibility of hosting stars from the Oracle Red Bull racing team. Will it be a nice distraction ahead of a much-needed comeback?
It's a completely different experience, but it's really cool.
Well, we've got big wins forecast here. Can he handle the pressure?
In the most extreme conditions witnessed in SailGP, the United States were in control.
Well, it's another top 3 place for the United States, and with Amélie Rieu stepping in from France as a strategist last minute, there seems to be no real language barrier whatsoever on this team.
It really says a lot, I think, about all the female athletes in SailGP and the level they're getting to.
Could this be it? The United States have made the final for a shot at the Saint-Tropez title. Jimmy Spittle finally does it, and he gets his first event title here in Saint-Tropez.
We're going to carry this momentum into Spain, and hopefully this is the start of the comeback in the season.
Well, we all know what happened last time Jimmy Spittle claimed a comeback of the season. It turned into one of the most spectacular comebacks in all of sport if you go back to 2013. And take a moment now, let's go down on the water. Lisa Darmanis, give us an update as we approach 6 minutes to go before the start of race number 2. Lisa.
Well, Todd, the conditions haven't changed much. They're still just as challenging out here. We did talk about how it is all about the flight controller, and I was lucky enough to catch Jason Waterhouse from the Australian team this morning. I said, why is it so hard? And he was just saying, with his head down, he doesn't really know where you are in the waves. You're always trying to catch up, and as the boat accelerates down the wave, they get more lift on the boat, and he can't see what's coming next. So that communication between the driver and the wing trimmer and flight controller is key. But imagine trying to do that when you're bouncing around all those waves. So they're not making it look easy out here, and that's for sure, but that's why they're the best sailors in the world. I think we're going to see another really, really tricky race, and as Hannah put it, it's about minimizing mistakes. You're going to make them, but just make less than your competitors.
And Hannah, to Lisa's point, it just looks so brutal out there. I mean, we've seen smooth sailing before. This is rough sailing. This is rough go.
Yeah, I mean, on those boats, it looks like they're riding bucking broncos. It's absolutely crazy. They're up and down all over the place. It looks incredibly challenging to just sail the boat well in a straight line, let alone turning corners.
Is this a race for the flight controller, do you think?
I think it is, but I think it's a communication race, like Lisa was saying, you know, that communication loop between the driver, the wing trimmer, the flight controller, making sure everyone's aligned as to whether the pressure's coming on, whether you're at the top of a wave or bottom of a wave. I think that's going to be crucial.
All right, as we bounce around the fleet here with 4:40 to go, Canada's having some issues on board, so we'll keep an eye on that to see if they're able to go in that 4.5 minutes. Stevie, let's go and see what Spain says.
Well, yeah, hi, Geordie. You had us a little bit nervous before the start of that first race. Looks like you fixed the boat, but great first race. It looks like you're feeling pretty comfortable on home waters.
Yeah, trying to was a bit stressed the end, but yeah, was at the end. Thanks to our great short team, also help of the tech team, managed to get to the start, and yeah, we just went out like full on and just overtaking boats. Let's see if we can have another great race.
Yeah, we saw that. You came onto the screen late and did a great job. And Paula, I can see you in the background there. Must be great. You raced at the Olympic Games, but to race in front of home fans in Cádiz is good. Is the local knowledge helping?
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hola? Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah, it's amazing being racing here in front of the city of Cádiz. I think, yeah, the front water is full of people, and we are really happy to be racing here.
Nice. And what is the most important things out there? You guys came from last to fourth. It was incredible. How did you come through so quickly? What were the strategy?
Yeah, I think the most important was, yeah, keep calm. I think the conditions are pretty difficult because we are struggling quite a lot to keep the fly with these big waves. But I think the team did really good. I did really well. So yeah, keep going.
Great work. Well, good work, guys. It was a brilliant race. So let's make sure you have another good one.
All right, we are 2:45 away from the start of the second race as the boats continue to get themselves into position. Hannah and Stevie, let's go back and look at race number one and some of the highlights, and there were plenty to try to adjust as New Zealand gets to win, France and USA, the top three.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's again, we say so much about the start, and we can see New Zealand. I mean, they were an inch behind the line, a centimetre over the line with Great Britain and Australia, and it just put them on the back foot there. And from here, it was about the manoeuvres. We see Canada crashing off the foils. We see New Zealand struggling to jibe. It's just hard work out there, Hannah.
Yeah, it was really, really hard work, and you could see how much, you know, falling off the foils in a manoeuvre was a race-ending move, and we saw that with Canada, we saw that with Great Britain at the bottom gate mark. So yeah, staying up on the foils was everything.
I think we see the crashes here, and I know that after the event in Saint-Tropez, one of the New Zealand sailors had a massive smack on the back of the head, and they described the load of the water as being like being hit by a concrete block to the head. I mean, it's pretty big loads out there. You know about those impacts, don't you?
Yeah, when you're going those speeds, then you definitely feel the impact.
So race one goes the way of the Kiwis, France in second, USA third, Spain fourth, Switzerland finishing in the top five as we are now under 90 seconds to go. So everyone getting in positions. To Lisa Darmana's point, conditions about the same that we saw in race number one. So Hannah, I'll start with you. Where do you go? Do you change your strategy in the start box?
Yeah, well, I think you're still just trying to get off the line in good shape. You know, we saw how many opportunities there were to make a comeback in that race one, when people were falling off the foils. So just staying in the race, you know, not being over at the start, I think will be key. And yeah, keeping it open to give yourself opportunity.
And Stevie, we talk about this course. Is this a passable course, to Hannah's point?
Yeah, mistakes are happening. There's a lot of passing, but don't lose sight of the fact the first two boats at Mark 1 were first and second in the race. So I think whenever it's hard and difficult with all these decisions, if you're in the lead, you've at least got clear space to do it. If you're trying to manoeuvre in the fleet, it's really, really hard. So the next few seconds are crucial, and we see now Australia well positioned again. USA and New Zealand, they seem to be having a bit of a grudge match in the pre-start. They're close together towards the left-hand side of our screen again, and late back it's Great Britain. They could well struggle from here. Let's watch New Zealand as they put an attack on the US boat here. Jimmy Spithill tries to block them. It's going to be a real battle to get up to speed at the top of the line here. Australia have found their own peace and quiet in the middle of the start line and look well positioned. Jimmy, wow! Oh, the US boat surely expect a protest there from the Canadians. That's very tight. One last turn from Peter Burling, but Delapierre in the French boat again looks well on timing. Watch for the line to turn white. And we're going race 2. It's going to be a drag race. Australia are well lined up. They should be fast in from here and could lead at Mark 1.
Race number 2 of the Spain Sail Grand Prix as they approach mark number 1. A much better start for the Australians. Canada on the outside, Denmark right behind them, and the Americans with Jimmy Spithill having another great start as they drift off to the right-hand side.
Great shot that is. Look at the boats leaping around, how low they are to the water. We're used to seeing these boats foiled nearly a metre out of the water, but there's spray all over them at the moment as the Canadians look to turn around. Billy Gooderham, the flight controller, but it's the old master, Jason Waterhouse, famed as the best flight controller in the fleet, and the Australians lead away.
And the winners of the first race, New Zealand, are in the back of the pack. Don't count on that lasting long.
You saw Canada fall off the foils again in the background there. Billy Gooderham struggling to keep it under control. But look, sat down. Lowest person in the shot there, Jason Waterhouse. That's the flight controller. He's having to balance this boat, juggle the game of risk. As they all start to turn on the boundary, these manoeuvres are crucial right now. Big lead for Australia already.
The Australians finishing in 6th in the first race. Remember, it's all about getting the points and having enough points to be in the final race, the podium race, at the end of Sunday.
The voice of Ben Ainsley there, listening to Nicky Boniface saying, just hoping for one and in. They hope to do one more turn and make it to gate 2, and certainly right now the British boat looks quick. They're driving over the top of the Spanish, but ladder lines there showing us that 150 metres ahead after just 2 or 3 minutes of the race is Australia. If you let them get out in front, they look pretty good. But probably the more interesting battle is going to be with that British boat and the Australians. Look how hard, look how low they're flying the boat, Anna.
Yeah, I think that they're all just taking it down a notch in terms of safety, and they're all flying the boats a little bit lower than in race 1 to keep it hopefully up on the foils and stop those big crashes.
Here we go, right-hand side of screen. Watch Great Britain, they have the right of way. France must keep clear, it's a tight turn. They're going to struggle to keep it foiling on the French boat from here. That was so aggressive by Ainsley. He slung the boat towards the French. The French keep clear, but they're off the foils. It's going to be a big loss for the French boat here. Ainsley, no mercy there. He's going to be well set. He moves from 4th to 3rd in one manoeuvre.
And they need a big performance after finishing last in race number 1. It's the Australians. They'll make it down to gate 2 first and make the turn. So Tom Slingsby off and running here in race number 2. A lot to make up for after finishing 6th in the first race.
I just expect the Australians to extend away from here, Todd. They've got clear wind, clear choices, and it's really going to be a battle in the pack. As we see Great Britain just sneak around the mark there. They had to drop both their foils, big foils in the water to get round. Spain choose to turn away, and we're going to learn a bit more about the course here as we see them split away. And the pack is now going to be tight in the pack.
Looks like the USA are going to follow Spain on that other side. So it's Australia, Spain, Great Britain, the USA in 4th, and tight quarters there. Look at this, France dips inside.
Yeah, France have the right of way there. Jimmy Spithill choosing not to do an extra manoeuvre and sail extra distance as he squeezes round. New Zealand in the background there as well. They're back in the race, but they will be slow from here. They're going to look to turn instantly after gate 2. Wow, it's really tight. Hard work, especially for a new skipper, Seb Schneider. Back on. Nathan Outridge isn't here this weekend, so how much has Seb managed to absorb, sponge in from having Nathan on the boat in the past 2 events? Spain with the right of way. Great Britain must keep clear. This race looks really, really tight here. The Spanish are doing so well here. Hometown heroes, and they seem to be thriving in the pressure.
So Spain moving up a position. It's Australia, Great Britain, Spain, France, USA. That's your top 5. And we check in down on the water with Lisa.
Well, what we saw off that start is if you have a big crash and you fall off the foils, the reason that you go from first to last is it basically takes you over a minute to build your speed again, get up and going. So those mistakes, they're not little, they're big, and they cost you so much distance. So Australia, they're riding a lot lower than I saw them ride last time, and it's really paying off for them.
To Lisa's point, Hannah, you make one mistake, you might be able to recover in a race if it happens early. You make 2 mistakes, you probably have no shot of placing in the top 3.
Yeah, almost certainly. And like Lisa was saying, once you're up, you're clear ahead. You've got more time to make decisions. You've got more time to play it a little bit safe, and we're seeing that from the Australians. They're just sailing away with this.
So Tom Slingsby, the Australians, 2-time reigning and defending champions. They won the first 2 events of the season in Bermuda and Chicago, and then they had issues in Copenhagen where they did not make the podium race, finishing 4th, and they finished 5th in Saint-Tropez. So they'd like to get back to their winning ways, and they are the first ones to pass through gate number 3.
Bit of a masterclass at the moment, Todd. All I've heard Tom Slingsby say up this leg is big gain, big gain, big gain.
Beautiful view of the course here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix presented by Near. What a day for sailing, and the fleet now has spread out just a little bit. Hannah, we saw them earlier, especially in race number 1, very tight quarters. It looks like everyone's giving themselves a little more elbow room.
Yeah, I think they definitely are. I think we've got a big moment coming up potentially with Great Britain on the right of your screen and Spain on the left of your screen. This top gate mark, it'll be interesting to see who's come out ahead. They've been neck and neck this whole leg.
Should be the Spanish from here. I think they have the right of way as they come in here. Will they choose to go straight? No, Ainsley spins the boat in front of them. Aggressive from Ben Ainsley now. He has the right of way to turn left. Spain will have to follow. But I'm so impressed with Diego Botan, the flight controller on the Spanish boat. He's just got back from a really strong result at the 49er Worlds. He's a 49er European champion, but he's flight controller here. Seems to be doing a pretty good job of keeping that Spanish boat fast.
Here comes France, finished in 2nd in the first race. They are currently sitting in 4th place after a great start. The Americans right behind them in 5th. Switzerland coming into view. They are in 7th currently, and they finished in the top 5 in that first race. Denmark, a much better performance. The big question for me is what is going on with Canada? They've had their problems, and New Zealand sitting in 8th.
Well, the New Zealand boat just didn't have a good start, and there you go. You can see them dipping behind the Swiss boat there. But yeah, Canada, well, what happened? They were 4th in the first downwind leg there. They did a bad maneuver, fell off the foils, and just crashed out, and that was it. They just lost. As you've said, you lose distance, you lose so much distance so quickly.
And Stevie, we talked about this, especially when we get to Sunday. You start crunching the numbers. You can have one bad race, a 7, 8, or a 9. You can't have 2.
You can't have 2, no. And you see there the Australians stretching away, 532 metres. I mean, it's absolute display. And they had a 6th. It's not a great start. Slingsby knows he needs to get themselves back in the game. And this crew, well, they're used to delivering under pressure, and they're really doing that now. But no, you can't afford two bad races here. So for New Zealand, they've got to look to make changes. Ben Ainsley, well, he's had a bad one, but look, what a way to bounce back.
So there's your leading boat on the left side of the screen. It is Australia out in front. They've already gone around the gate. Great Britain, Ben Ainsley, they are in 2nd place with Spain. For my money, Stevie, they've been the biggest surprise. I mean, you talk about the pressure that's on them racing on home waters, then they have the malfunction right before the start of the race, and they still deliver a top 5. They finish in 4th in race number 1, and here they are in 3.
Well, and you saw the smile on Geordie's face. I mean, he's loving being out here in Cádiz, and they're really putting on the show. And no, I've got to say they're the most impressive team in terms of stepping up the performance right now, but only halfway through the first day, leg 5 or 6 here. They're getting towards the business end of this race, and they're going to be, if they can hold on to 3rd, they're going to be very, very well set.
So Great Britain and Ben Ainsley make the turn. They are around. They are on to leg number 5. Spain right behind them. Remember, it's up to the top of the course and then left-hand turn into the finish line. Australia looks to have this one wrapped up. Great Britain 2nd, Spain in 3rd. And then the battle for those points in the middle. France currently sits in 4th. The Americans have moved up to 5th.
French as well, very consistent on board there.
And for the USA, obviously they didn't have the best start. They were pushed out to the outside. But for Jimmy, you got to look at the long game.
Tight moment here. The Swiss are sneaking across in front. I expect we're going to get a protest from the Danish boat there. That was aggressive by Seb Schneider on the Swiss boat. I expect the Danish to ask Craig Mitchell a question there of who had the right of way.
Umpires. Penalty Switzerland, relative Denmark, port tack boat not keeping clear.
Got to say, I'm agreeing with Craig Mitchell a lot more than usual today. So that was a tight cross by the Swiss. It is his birthday, but he was pushing his luck there, Seb, driving that Swiss boat. He's now got some space, but he has to drop back behind the Danish. This penalty, this late in the race, could be really costly.
So Australia, Great Britain, and Spain out in front. Australia has got to be close to that top gate as they make the turn, and they will have the win and plenty of time to debrief before the third and final race of the day here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix, presented by Near. Calm voices, not a lot of chatter going on board Australia SailGP.
No, and you just can see how much the boats are changing height relative to the water there. Luke Parkinson, flight controller on the British boat. Well, he's renowned for pushing what's possible. And at the moment, that British boat does look like it's flying high, but the boat speed's not really high. Look at the top of the mast. They're a little bit slower than that Spanish boat. So perhaps pushing is not the answer today. It's about the consistency of the flight. It's about keeping that boat at a steady level, keeping the speed up as we see the Spanish turn one more time, and they try and find some space away from Ben Ainsley.
So Ainsley taking it all the way to the boundary, and then he will turn in. Meanwhile, it is Australia who have made the turn as they make their way to the finish.
Great Britain there, parallel to this yellow line. They're lined up nicely for this final gate. Good result, good bounce back for Ainsley. Up to 6th is New Zealand in the middle of our screen there. Places at this stage of the race are crucial, and it's really, really tight in the pack here. Much better for the British.
So, Stevie, Australia has crossed the finish line already as the clock continues to run, and this is a massive victory for the Australians. Now the battle on for 2nd and 3rd. Great Britain and Spain currently holding down those positions. France sits in 4th, the USA in 5th.
Yeah, it was an absolutely massive wind on. I mean, they've not even been in the shot for the last minute or so. They're so far down the road. Really impressive performance, and really impressive performance by the British to get back to 2nd, but still really delivering at the moment. The Spanish and the French, just a couple of younger teams. Again, both of these only really starting out as drivers at this event, and then Geordie even later. 3rd and 4th in this race, and the French, wow, here they come in tight. Can the French look to blast past the Spanish right at the finish?
The battle for 3rd is on between Spain and France. France with much more speed. Look at the masthead numbers, 52 plus, 49 for Spain as they start to build, and this will be a full drag race to the line.
Really did a good job of saving that one, Todd, the Spanish. A lot of pressure from Contan and this French crew, but the Spanish have managed to hold them off, and this is a big result for the young Spanish boat.
So Spain brings it to the seawall, much to the delight of all the fans who have turned out. They will claim 3rd to go with a 4th in race number 1. France comes across, so they get a 2nd in race 1 and a 4th in race 2. And look at this.
Yeah, they're giving the fans what they want there. Real matadors out there on the water, and they're certainly geeing up the crowd, that is for sure. As Jimmy Spittle just holds off Burling. It was nearly a late charge from the Kiwis, but they get a 6th in behind the USA boat in 5th place there. So I think Burling, he managed to gain a few points at the end, but it's going to be interesting on these results.
A 1 and a 6 now for New Zealand. The USA gets a 3 and a 5 as the rest of the fleet comes home. And I'll tell you what, it is going to be interesting crunching the numbers. Denmark, a much better performance than they had in race number 1. They will finish in 7th ahead of Canada in 8th.
Tough one for the Canadians there, 'cause it's just a big costly mistakes there, really. And the Swiss, well, it's a tough day out there. It's not like Lake Geneva on the ocean here, Todd.
So the entire fleet is home. Race 2 is complete in Australia. The big winners on the day for race 2 to go with their 6th place performance in race number 1. Stevie, let's have a look at the start once again.
Yeah, well, the start we know is so crucial. Jimmy Spittle, he was aggressive up at the top of the line, but he got himself in a fight. He has to keep clear of Canada. Jimmy Spittle's closer to the wind on the US boat. He must keep clear of the Canadians. He does, but that makes a mess of his start, and it opened a huge hole for the Australian boat there, and Tom Slingsby's not one to turn that down. From here, just about your timing, and he times it perfectly. As the line goes white, he's the fastest boat in the fleet and leads the way.
And again, plenty of key moments to handle here, Hannah.
Yeah, well, for me, this was one of the key moments. There was plenty in this race, but the British boat, you know, turning the corner, coming into the right of way, forcing the French boat to jibe out the way really quickly and forcing them off the foils. just meant that the British boat then had a pretty clean rest of the race to get a top 3 result, whereas the French had to really battle to hold on and to come back, and did really, really well actually to come back and keep 4th place.
And much more room for the Australians as they pulled away from everyone. As we take a look at the event standings right now, and look at this, France on top, 16 points, 1 clear of Australia, Spain sitting in 3rd, so right now they're in a podium race position. New Zealand and the USA, your top 5. Great Britain moves up the ladder because that great performance in race number 2, they now sit in 6th. Well, SailGP's Women Pathway was launched to help bring gender equity and make the championship more inclusive. And Cádiz marks 1 year since the women sailors have been racing on board for 100% of the races. So far, 25 female athletes have been getting to grips with the F50s and providing a visible inspiration for upcoming athletes as well.
This has just been once in a lifetime opportunity. I've only ever dreamt racing against these athletes.
You learn so much every single time you go out on the water.
Really cool to be at the beginning of the story and learn about the boat is pretty cool.
I really want to be the best sailor I can be.
And we see CJ Perez there, just 18 years old.
A year ago, it's crazy to think I was with Inspire, and now I'm with the British team. Hopefully a lot more will follow in my footsteps.
And Hannah, it was actually 1 year ago the Women's Pathway program really kicked off here, and you've been a big part of that. What has been your experience like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Women's Pathway program is an absolute game changer for women who are already at the top of our sport, but also the young, aspiring female athletes of the future. The amount of young female sailors who come up to me inspired and excited about what's happening in SailGP and the Women's Pathway program and the potential for opportunities for them in the future is incredible. We've had significant progress since Cádiz last year, closing the experience gap, but there's still more to do. We've got 1 year, 1 year since the start of this program, and this is only the beginning.
Season 3's underway.
Canada managed to make the three-way final in their inaugural Grand Prix, but it didn't take long for Australia to show why they're double season champions.
Australia brings it home.
Few would have thought Canada were capable of making yet another final, but this time they went one better in Chicago by finishing second, with Australia making an early rush for season points.
The 2-time defending champions make it 2 in a row.
For Great Britain, they missed a home event final in just one cross.
Penalty GBR.
Denmark made their first final. New Zealand found their form winning their first Grand Prix, mixing up the pecking order for an exciting season ahead.
The Kiwis take the win in Plymouth.
With the season wide open, teams were out practicing ahead of Copenhagen and disaster struck for Great Britain, hitting a rock causing devastating damage, and their event was over. New Zealand maintained their form and nobody could catch them. France and Denmark joined them in the final but couldn't beat the speed of the Kiwis.
New Zealand takes the win here in Copenhagen.
The rivalry continues between Australia and New Zealand, and the Kiwis took every opportunity to get an edge on their competition.
Peter Burling taking the win in race number 1.
France made history with a top speed in SailGP. Jimmy Spittle and his United States team were the consistent performers on day 1 and dealt with the shift into light wind mode for day 2 for their first ever SailGP victory.
The Americans have claimed the victory here at the Range Rover France Sail Grand Prix.
Go, go, go.
Well, Well, massive crowds have turned out here in Cádiz for the Spain Sail Grand Prix, presented by Near. Everyone jockeying for the best position, and why not? On a day like this, I'll tell you what, the Spanish team have done a great job getting a 4th and a 3rd. And it's not just the foiling F50s, Hannah Mills. The Wasps are out there putting on a show as well. And this is the same course the F50s are competing on.
Yeah, this is amazing to see these young sailors, part of the SailGP Inspire program, sailing on these Wasps out there in amongst the F50s. It's all about finding the talent of the future and inspiring the next generation. I can't even imagine having this opportunity as a young sailor, racing up and close near these legends of our sport. Look at him, he's having fun out there.
Yeah. Stevie, they make it look so easy, but as you've told me before, this is not easy, especially in these conditions.
Well, no, and I think that seeing those slightly smaller boats gives us a great indication of how big the waves are. Of course, our F50 is a lot bigger, but the waves are proving really challenging out here today, and yeah, highlights it by seeing those smaller boats.
2:20 to go until the start of the 3rd and final race here on day number 1 of the Spain Sail Grand Prix, presented by Near, and this is a huge one. Stevie, Hannah, it's all about the points, and we see France leading right now because they've been the most consistent. They get a 2nd in the first race, a 4th in the 2nd race. You don't have to win everything. You've just got to be consistent, and I think France, the USA, of course, and New Zealand, Great Britain looking very good as well as these Australians.
It's about 24 hours from now that you need to win the race, Todd, to walk away as the victor. And yeah, right now it's about getting to that final. It's about the consistency, and we've seen Great Britain, well, they've been right at the back, they've been right at the front. And I just think for the boats like the US in the middle of the pack, this race can really either give you a good night's sleep or a really bad night's sleep ahead of the final day, Hannah.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's been amazing to see sort of the boats jumping up and down the leaderboard. Actually, ultimately, I think everyone's probably pretty close on points now going into race 3 of the day.
So 1:25 to go. We check in quickly down on the water for a conditions report, and Lisa.
Hi Todd, yeah, it's all the same out here. It's still going to be just as challenging. One thing that I've been noticing at the start though is that the British team like to start at the bottom of the line, the Australian team like to start in the middle of the line, the New Zealand team are always at the top, and the French just go wherever they please.
So Hannah, there is some consistency, a little method to the madness. We know that Pete Burling and the Kiwis like to start in the back and get a full run at it. So can you pick out those consistencies at this point, or do you say, okay, everyone, it's just mixed marbles?
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to look, but ultimately you're just focusing on yourself and trying to get yourself into the best position to jostle so that you can hit the line at full pace. It kind of doesn't matter always whereabouts on the line that is.
So we see them turning back now in Australia. They're well set for the middle. Great Britain turning. They are going to be at that more downwind end of the line, higher up on our screen, and I just think it's a high-risk place to start. It's not worked for Great Britain, so I'm surprised we've not seen a change of strategy from them, really. New Zealand and Australia, they're jostling in the middle of the pack. I think the middle's a good place to be. We got some on board from New Zealand there, but Burling trying to lead the fleet back on the New Zealand boat. He's going to be pressed late by Australia. 10 seconds to go. The Battle of the Titans is in the middle, and it looks like the Australian boat's timed it well. As Burling turns down, he's going to need to keep clear. Watch for the line to turn white. Oh, what a start by the 3 of you. Could chuck a blanket over the first 5 boats there, and it now is a pure test of strength as they head towards Mark 1, and it's going to be France or Australia that lead at Mark 1 from here.
This is like NASCAR on water, 5 wide as they make their way to Mark 1 here in Spain.
It's all about how high you risk flying the boat here, Todd. Maybe the British can cling on the inside. I think it's going to be hard. Is Delapierre able to get round him? No, somehow Ainsley hangs on and is going to lead on the British boat at Mark 1. Watch the acceleration here. Can they keep it in the water? Can they keep it flying at a good height? There you go, look at that. The British boat, they're the ones in control. They were the first to turn the boat left, turn down away from the wind, and they've turned a 20-metre lead into a 50-metre lead in the blink of an eye, but I'm pretty confident this next turn will be pretty decisive, and it's Australia that drop the board first and turn away.
And they needed this one in a big-time way. Great Britain, remember, finished 8th in the first race, and they bounced back 2nd in race number 2.
They did.
Comms on the lock.
Oh, that's Ben Ainsley there. You said Ben just said he's struggling for comms on the lock.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's really hard as the driver if you can't hear what's going on in terms of when you have to turn the boat, so that can cause big problems.
Ah, nice, okay. Yeah, so it's a good jibe though, Todd. They've turned the boat there, they execute the manoeuvre very well, and they've made another gain, but it's Slingsby on board Australia, pressuring the French. Delapierre again up there.
Impressive performance. Remember, it's been 1 year since Quentin Delapierre took over for Villebesson in France SailGP, and he's had mixed results, but as of late, he's been very consistent. And look at this. This is tight quarters right here.
When the Americans turn, they're going to get the right of way, and I think they're comfortably behind the leading group of 3. It's more about Australia and France. It's going to be very soon that Slingsby can tell he's already around the front of the French boat. The pure boat speed of the Australians here, just faster. Ainsley matches the turn now. They should be lined up for gate 2, and we've seen that trying to minimise your manoeuvres is a pretty key strategy out there today.
Hannah, let's talk about being on that boat at the 3rd race. Are you just absolutely exhausted, and especially in conditions like this?
You're exhausted for sure, but I mean, ultimately, you know, these guys and girls are at the top of their physical condition, so they're used to this type of racing. They're used to pushing it, and they'll definitely have what it takes to get through this race.
Tricky moment here. Ainsley braces himself. Nicky Boniface there clarifying that the boat's behind. There's no opportunity to look behind today, but Nicky's able to do that for Ben. And they just know they're following us. If you're in the lead and the boat's behind you, follow. That's just one of the most relaxing feelings in the world. We see it's tight in the pack, though. There's not going to be a lot of relaxation on those boats.
And the USA and Jimmy Spithill opt to split the course as Canada will follow the rest of them. So Spithill possibly seeing something on the other side there, maybe getting some information from Erica Reinecke, his strategist on the back.
I think they've seen space, Todd. I think if you're in the pack, if you can have no one in front of you round a mark and you can then sail at top speed, you want that. For New Zealand back in the pack, they've got no choice. They're going to be following someone, but the cleanest option out with the least manoeuvres is going to keep your speed highest, and of course the faster you can go, the more chance you've got to get back in the race.
Great Britain, Australia, USA, France, your top 4 right now, and they've really been some of the most consistent sailors on the day, and this is a huge moment for Hannah's teammates, Great Britain. If they can get the win here, this would be huge for their cause getting into that podium race tomorrow.
Okay, stand by.
Looks like the wind's turned around to the side of the course, to the right-hand side, where Ben Ainsley is at the moment, where the US were. So it was an advantage for the United States on that manoeuvre. They've moved up there to 3rd, crossing ahead of the French. That's just because the wind's changed direction. It means the US have been able to sail a shorter distance, and they've made a bit of a gain. But that same change in wind direction could help the French in a minute, as when they come back together with the US, they'll have the right of way.
Yeah, and as the British boat here, you're just so happy. You know, you've got your closest rivals. You can see them on the same tack as you, sailing the same way, and you know you've got everything under control at this point.
It's a bit optimistic last time.
If you're all sailing in the same direction, of course, you're likely to end up in the similar patch of wind. You're likely to end up with a similar direction of wind. So for Ainsley right now, he'll love that image. And what he's doing here, he's just trying to be accurate with these manoeuvres, and they're looking for a foiling tack, we heard him say.
Hannah, on a whole, how do you think GBR has done this year? They seem a little bit inconsistent, and obviously what happened in Copenhagen is just tough. Just no points with that damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach of the British team this year has definitely been to try and be consistent and be consistently near that top 3 at the end of each regatta and each event, to hopefully make that top 3 at the end of the season, which is ultimately all it's about, is getting into that top 3 for that final race.
Stevie, you talked about the Titans as they make their way up here to this next gate, gate number 3, the near gate. You've got Great Britain first, you've got Australia sitting in 2nd, and then you've got the Americans in 3rd with France just sneaking in there.
Oh, it's so tight with the French boat there, just dipping behind here. What a great view of the waves that we can see here. And of course, the waves move in a circular motion, so the flight controllers are having to judge where they are in that flow of water. If the wave and the circle is pushing you up, you're going to fly too high. If the circle's taking you down, you're going to fly too low. We've got a tight moment here with the US and the French, right of way with the US, and they sneak around in front of the French. And now it's up for Hans Henken to try and work out where he is in the flow of the wave to try and keep that US boat sailing fast.
So France and the USA battling for that 3rd position and the points that go with it. Canada coming into view now in 5th place. They'll head down the course, then back up, and then the left of the finish. And look at the distance. Look at the massive crowds on the seawall. What a day to watch the world's best sailors.
Pretty tricky here, isn't it? And once again, back in the pack, the New Zealand boat. Burling's going to need to get a couple of points back from here, otherwise they're going to be under huge pressure tomorrow. Well, we know this rivalry between Slingsby and New Zealand, the Australians and the Kiwis. It's turned into a big one, and Slingsby's going to like what he sees.
And this is not good news for the Spanish crew. They are currently sitting in 8th place, so everyone says they have one bad race. Spain, this would probably be theirs because they've got a 4 and a 3, and right now they're sitting in 8th.
It's nice though, they're sailing the boat really nicely on board the Spanish boat today, but as we look back at the front of the fleet, you can see Great Britain. Again, he's going in the same direction as the Australians. He'll love that. One last turn before they get to the gate, and they'll put the boats back upwind, and it should be relatively easy for Ainsley from here. It's interesting there, he's having to rush.
So Nicky Boniface giving some strategy there. Good pressure both ways, gives him options.
Yeah, it means you can take either way. It means the wind's fairly even, and as everyone's alluded to, the big challenge out here today is just how hard can you push the boats.
Yeah, it's great to hear Nicky Boniface getting involved. It's easy to underestimate how hard it is for these guys and girls sailing these boats. You know, their minds are so focused on their job, so that strategist role is really crucial in feeding that information in to the drivers so they can make the best decisions.
Leg 5 of 6. It is Great Britain and Australia way out in front. France now is securely holding on to 3rd, and we'll see what Jimmy Spithill and the USA decide to do. Do they split the course again? It looks that way.
They're going to head back in, and the French are doing an absolutely class job today in 3rd place again. They've really been at the front of the fleet, doing a really nice job. You can see they're 36 seconds back. In 4th place is the US. Probably too much distance to hope to get back to 1st, but Jimmy's going to have his eyes razor focused on that French boat, as a podium for them would be crucial.
Phil Robertson and the Canadians get around. They're currently in 5th, and New Zealand, after winning the first race and finishing 6th in race number 2, they are in the same position here in race number 3, and that's giving away a lot of points, even for someone as talented as Pete Burling, Blair Tuke, and the rest of that team.
Todd, I just think the league, the quality of the teams now, you just can't make mistakes. As you allude to it, you get punished whoever you are, and right now, well, we saw in that first race the British boat, but Ainsley, they made a massive mistake and they were punished really hard. More than capable of winning a race by a long way, and it looks pretty calm and calculated on board right now.
Oh, look at that, spins it around. Hannah, what's that like being on that back end when they spin the boat that much? What are the G-forces like?
Yeah, the G-forces are pretty intense, and definitely if you're in the wrong position, you can easily get knocked over or flung and lose your feet from under you.
So here we go. It'll be all key as they come up to the next gate. This is the second to last gate. Second to last leg, excuse me, leg 5 of 6. There you see the ride height, and Great Britain holding on, being clean, and they've got the lead with Australia in 2nd.
It's interesting how much these ride heights on the left are changing, and that's just to do with the wave state. They just can't fly the boat over a metre as we're used to seeing consistently, because that water's changing, the waves are circulating round, changing how much the boat lifts up and down out the water, so they're having to have some safety margin.
And down on the water, Lisa, is there anything to give you hope that the Australians have any chance of tracking down Great Britain?
No, I think Great Britain have sailed a textbook race from start to finish, but for me, down on the water, the amazing thing is to see how much better the teams are sailing in race 3 today than they were in race 1. It's a completely different class out here, so really impressive to see how fast they're learning, and I think the British team have this wrapped up, but I'm sure the Australians will push super hard on this final leg.
Yeah, well, we can just see this graphic come in at the bottom left of our screen, which just goes to show that the GBR and Australian team both sailing really consistent races, almost with 100% fly time for both the boats.
How much better they've got through the day, Todd. I mean, those numbers were about 85% at the beginning of the day, and they're learning on the job. We saw the British, they've clearly got a comms issue. Nicky Boniface had to put her arm up to let Luke Parkinson know Ben was flying the boat. The comms aren't working between Ben and Parko, but
Great Britain with the bounce-back race, and they get the win. Ben Ainsley guides his team to a victory in race number 3 here in Spain. Tom Slingsby with a nice performance, so they will go first in race number 2 and 2nd in race number 3, and that's strong because they had a tough one in race number 1 where they finished in 6th place.
there you go. No surprise there. If Ben Ainsley's in front of you, he's not going to give you room to wiggle. But class performance today. Got to be the French. Another top 3, another podium finish in this race. And Quentin de la Pierre, he's really, what a job he's doing.
No question. They were leading coming into this race in the overall, and this is going to help their cause. The USA squad with Jimmy Spithill, they'll come in and they will be in 4th, get a little loose. Maybe he's putting on a show for the huge crowds up on the seawall, but the USA squad, for my money, Stevie, has been very consistent. Nothing outside of the top 5.
No, it's going to be so tight in the pack, the battle for 3rd, and that could be vital. New Zealand there, Peter Burling, he's managed to jump the Canadian boat on this final leg. He's turned a 6th into a 5th. How important will that result be when we get to the money counting time tomorrow? 6th for Canada. I think it's going to be hard to make the final for them from here.
A 1, 6, and a 5, to your point, for New Zealand. So that's much better than a 1, 6, and a 6 for Pete Burling and the Kiwis. Canada finishing in 6th place. Their day, man, a little bit forgettable. They had a 7th on race number 1. And, of course, a really bad one, 8th. And they back it up with another 6. So here comes the hometown favorites, Spain, bringing it across the line in 7th.
Still think that's a good day for the Spanish. They really reset well. 2 fantastic results, 1 tricky result, but they're going to be in the mix. Good debrief. I think Geordie and the crew have got to be happy with that, you know, that bit of local knowledge. And, well, Seherstedt has got some serious thinking to do, because I think they could be out of the hunt for the final already as well.
Yeah, that gives them a 9th, a 7th, and an 8th. Not the performance they were looking for. Remember, they came off a great showing in Copenhagen where they got into the podium race, and that was after a 3rd in Plymouth. And Switzerland really struggling today. Remember, it is back in the hands of Seb Schneider. Nathan Outridge is off testing, so Seb Schneider with some work to do on Championship Sunday.
Still very much learning, and they'll be hoping to sponge that knowledge that they would have got from Nathan Outridge, but, you know, it's a tricky day. We saw the best teams struggling. And for the new teams, it's been a real challenge.
Yeah, for Switzerland, they started off with a 5th place, and then they back it up with 2 9ths, which is really going to make it difficult for them to make it into that podium race, the top 3 racing tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but it was that start, Todd, again, and we saw the big hitters. There's been plenty of rivalry, plenty of wrangle away from the racing, and Australia and New Zealand, they got tight, they got in a fight. Slingsby wiggled his way out of it with a really aggressive manoeuvre here. He managed to slow the boat, turn down behind New Zealand. It did open the door for the Canadians here, but the start, look at the quality of this start. 5 bows, absolutely perfect as that line turns white. And de la Pierre in Australia did so well.
And how about the key moment, Hannah? There were a lot of them, although if you were a fan of Great Britain, they did great.
Yeah, well, I hate to keep banging on about the British, but yeah, this was brilliant. You know, they led at Mark 1, and then the move they did just to separate from the rest of the fleet just after that mark and give themselves time and opportunity to make that first manoeuvre in a bit less pressure than everyone else, which, you know, as we know, can really make sure that you nail that manoeuvre and you don't mess it up and come off the foils. So for me, that was the moment that led them to lead the race the whole way through and ultimately come out with the win.
Well, Ben Ainsley and company out on the water. Ben, we have a moment to chat with you if we can. Tough first race, but you guys bounced back nicely, especially, Ben, on that 3rd race. Is this a on-the-job learning experience for a guy of your caliber?
Is this coming down now? Just,
Ben, it's Todd Harris back in the studio. You got time. Apparently that is a no, so they've got their hands full right there, Stevie. Let's take a look at the standings as they bring their boat in and as the Spanish celebrate in front of their fans up on the seawall. Look at the turnout to celebrate, and Spain had a great opening first 2 races. Let's look at that scoreboard now. Wow, what a day, as Australia now tied with France on 24. Great Britain sitting in 3rd, so they would be in the podium race with 22. And the USA, Stevie, 1 point back, tied with New Zealand. To your point, a lot of parity. Even Spain in 6th place, only 2 points down as well.
More than in it, more than in it. That is all on for tomorrow. We've got a lot more racing ahead of us as we go into the final day tomorrow, and that is so tight there. Yeah, anyone from 6th through 1st, there's 1 race away from a big change-up.
So Australia and France, obviously the class of the day, but consistency and parity across the board here as SailGP Season 3 reaches the halfway point. How about the moment of the day, guys?
Oh, wow, the one that caught my moment was the British boat coming in at gate 2. We've only just started the day, and they had a tricky manoeuvre. They had to turn the boat twice. We can see the crew separated everywhere, and the boat flew so high, filled up with water, and they couldn't regroup. Look, we're on board at the back of the British boat here. Watch, they have to dive inside the Australians, but they're struggling for control, and they lose it completely. Well, they certainly managed to get their game face back on for the rest of the day.
So everyone now begins the debrief and catch your breath. And before we say goodbye, we want to check in with Lisa Darmanin on the water and see what she knows about tomorrow's conditions.
Well, that was incredible to watch. And tomorrow, things are actually expected to ramp up even more on the Atlantic Ocean. The wind is expected to come from a similar direction, with the west winds averaging slightly more than we saw today. 22 kilometers per hour winds are forecast, gusting up to 25 kilometers per hour. We can expect that same ocean swell up to about 1 metre in height, so I dare say there'll be a huge amount of debriefing happening this evening. All the data is shared, so I imagine those teams will be sifting through the data. I'd be looking at that ride height of the top teams, finding exactly how high is the optimum height for the best speed and the best stability.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. We look forward to your reporting tomorrow. Hannah Mills, now it's time for you to look into your crystal ball and tell us what is the boat to watch tomorrow.
Yeah, well, for me, Todd, the boat to watch is going to be the Spanish boat. I've been so impressed with them today. You know, they had that equipment failure before the start of race 1. They came back from that to deliver 2 top 4s in the first 2 races. Yeah, they did struggle in that final race, but they're only 3 points off making the podium final race this weekend, and it's their hometown event, and we know how much pressure that can add to a team. But these guys just really, they're rising to it, and they're embracing it, and they're sailing incredibly well.
And they currently sit in 6th place. And to Stevie Morrison's point, if you're in the top 6 at this regatta, you are still with a chance to get into that podium. So Stevie, final thoughts. Again, I think you hit on it perfectly. There's 6 teams that really have a viable shot of making it into the top 3.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you're the Canadians going to bed tonight, they say, right, we just got to win the first 2 races tomorrow and see where we are, see what opportunities are there.
Yeah, and let's not forget tomorrow we've potentially got 3 races before the final this time, so you know, plenty of opportunity for all of these teams to get back in that top 3.
And if you're one of the thousands of fans who've turned out on the seawall today, why wouldn't you come back tomorrow? Because as Lisa Darmanin reported, the winds could pick up even more. We could have even faster racing, and Stevie, that changes the dynamic altogether.
Well, it does, and I think what we saw through today, what really impressed me the most was when we saw those flight time graphics from race 1, where we saw numbers in the 80% and we saw numbers at the end. We actually saw 100% from the British in the final race. So perfection was possible, but all the crews have got to go in tonight and learn. It's all about being better. Hannah said it's all about being better in the next race, better in the next race. So they've now got 12, 15 hours to get themselves ready and be better when they get out there tomorrow. There's a lot to learn, and a lot of the teams need to learn.
Hannah, final thoughts from you as we get ready for day number 2, Championship Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I just echo what Stevie was saying. You know, at this top level, it's all about going home, crunching the numbers, seeing how you can be better, and coming out tomorrow and putting your game face on and really delivering a top-class performance.
Word of advice, get out here early because the prime seats are going to be at a premium unless you're out on the water, and there's plenty of great vantage points. So that will wrap things up. Day number 1 of the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalucia, Cádiz, in the books, presented by Near. On behalf of Lisa Darmanin, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist Hannah Mills, and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris saying so long for now. We'll see you tomorrow for race day number 2. It's going to be a beautiful day in Spain.
Yes, got to face it. Let's get back to basics. I'ma take the shot.
So the Spain Sail Grand Prix is off and running as they make their way to mark number 1.
New Zealand have got to keep clear. What a performance by this Spanish boat.
Great Britain with the bounce back race, and they get the win.
The women's pathway program is an absolute game changer.